Alrighty, folks, we're going to talk rental housing. Specifically, we are going to look at 1,500 cities and evaluate what the heck happened in 2025. Why is this important? Why is this critical? Well, a couple of reasons. First and foremost, if you are a real estate investor, you need to know what's going on in your city, in your buy box. But more importantly, as a country who's been suffering from inflation and has seen inflation as high as 9%, we need to understand, is rate inflation coming down? Is it picking up, or is it just structurally flat? Thankfully, we've got the folks at Retometer who just released their 2025 survey on rental housing, and we're going to look inside the details. Mike, what are you doing, man? What's going on?
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate this. This is going to be really interesting. I'd love to hear what's going on inside the rental market. You have a very unique purview in that you cover the country, and not only at the state level, but you're down to the city and town level, 1,500 cities plus. So what are you seeing kind of nationally, and then break it down by regions for us? What's going on in rental housing?
So the headline number is not the headline is not really a surprise. It's what we've been seeing, but it's validation or it's confirmation. It's kind of an exclamation point of 3 years of a trending down. And the exclamation point is rents were unchanged from 2024 to 2025. Wow. And so basically flat. The median rent for the US is $2,100. That's for an SFR, a
single family,
three bedroom right. SFR. It was 2,100 thereabouts in 2024, and it's 2,100 at the end of 2025. So that is it's a quarter of a point higher. So that's why I say it's not exactly, but a quarter of a point. When you compare that to what's happened over the last 4 years, if you look at 2022, SFR rents went up by 7.8%.
Wow.
2023, they went up by 3%. 2024, 2.4%. And then this year, flat, the quarter point, right? So there's definitely been that downward trend. The bonus year is 2021. And I went back, it wasn't in our report, but I went back and looked at it. And that had been up by 15%.
Oh my goodness.
From 20 to 21. So it really is it really does look like maybe not a steep ski slope, but it does look like a ski slope. And, it has implications because, to your point, real income from rental income is negative when you factor in inflation in a lot of places. So
there's no question when you factor in insurance by itself, let alone taxes, maintenance, employee, all of that stuff. It's very clear that rents are not keeping up with costs. But I think there's even a bigger kind of macro level stuff. And I say this as an economist. Right now, the Federal Reserve is not cutting interest rates because they think inflation is almost 3%. And because I understand and I share with my audience how inflation is calculated, rent or shelter, as they say, is 32% of that 3% inflation. And what you just shared with us is rents in the single family homes are up a quarter of a point. We know that apartment rents are down over 1 point. So in reality, the collective bucket of shelter is negative. And yet we have a Federal Reserve that just told us 3 days ago that shelter is up 3.2%. Why is this important? Well, it's important because the Fed is making monetary decisions with incomplete or inaccurate data. The inflation rate correctly reported by folks like Trueflation is under 2%. And frankly, the Fed could declare victory if they wanted to, and frankly, start cutting rates, because I think what's behind all of this is a weakening job market. And right now, the Fed is making decisions with just bad data. And again, you were just bringing us single family, which is awesome, 1,500 locales, and basically telling us it's flat. So it's not 3%, it's not 9%, it's flat. So this is great insight.
Yep. And to your point, you mentioned the apartment side. The apartment side is definitely having an impact on the SFR side, because some of the markets, the SFRs just went up so much that there's plenty of viable, less expensive options on the apartment side because of the supply side there. So, and it's funny how the single family buy market, the ownership market versus the single family rental market versus the apartment rental market, the interplay there, because a lot of people can't afford a home, so
Right.
they rent. A lot of them went to the SFR route, and could get the homeowner experience without the bill.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are going back to apartments because the SFRs got priced out of the SFRs. And I saw
Yeah.
that stat somewhere. I apologize. I forget where I saw the stat, but somebody's tracking. I believe it might be First American.
Could be.
One of those guys, or Adam. They track the number of renters that move from a single family
Yeah.
to an
Back. Yeah.
apartment.
The boomerang, right? They go to single family and they go back, given price or
Yeah.
choice or whatnot. So,
Right.
but when we go back to your report on 1,500 cities across the country, that's the macro level. I'm guessing you kind of broke it down by cities or metros. I don't know if you have this, but when I talk to folks across the country, the city that is at the top of the list for SFR reduction is actually Austin, Texas. I don't know if your data showed the same thing, or maybe you had a city that was worse. I'm curious what you're seeing.
Among the cities, let's see. Dallas was down 4.4%. Austin was down 3.6%.
Oh, Dallas. Okay.
Tucson down 2.4%. And
Okay.
Glendale, Arizona down by 2.3%. They were on the big negatives.
Yeah.
I believe these are cities with more than 250,000.
Yeah, big metros probably. So that's actually really interesting, because again, another thing that those cities specifically have in common, this, but for the audience, is they delivered a lot of Class A apartments. And a lot of Class A apartments now are struggling. And guess what they're doing? They're giving away first month's rent, second month's rent, because again, and that will pull people from single families back. And the real of all of this is, if you want to see rent deflation, which again, -4%, -3%, -2% is deflation, you have to build a lot of homes.
Yes.
That's the net of all of this, is you got to build lots of homes.
Right.
Because again, it's back to supply and demand.
Yeah. Well, you know how it goes, right? Whatever the asset class, whether it's houses, whether it's apartments, the new construction becomes the A.
Mm-hmm.
The 5 to 10-year-old stuff becomes the B, and the older stuff becomes the C and D. And we had a period in the between 2010 and 2020. There was the new construction was way down, so there was no A being built at that time, which would have been the B and C today, which is the affordable housing for the starter homes. So there's this whole class where there's just a supply shortage of affordable housing. So now the A's are being built.
Yep.
But there's no
A's there. Yeah.
To go move down to the B and the C. So what you see is, I wouldn't call it a barbell, but you see the high end. You can go find $1 million home in a lot of these markets to buy brand new, but you can't find a $400,000 home or a brand new $400,000 or $500,000 home.
Yeah, I was. You bring up such a good point. I was at Resi Day last year, and on stage they asked me if I had a magic wand, what would I do to fix housing? And I said then, and hopefully President Trump does something like this, is I would create a federal program that incentivized builders, much like the GI Bill did, to go build entry-level housing. And by entry-level, I would define it as 1,100 square feet or smaller. Mm-hmm. We haven't had an initiative like that since the 1950s, and we're seeing it. Right? When I shop for property all the time, probably more than I should. And you have these old cracker box 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and then you have these newer, 2000 builds that are 2,000 square feet. There's like nothing in the middle. And, we need entry level housing.
Every market has them. In Massachusetts, the areas, Eastern Massachusetts, where I live, they call them campanellis. They're a slab with no foundation.
Yep.
And they're, 900 to 1,100 square feet. Exactly. They have a garage. Most people turn the garage into extra living space.
Yep.
And there's whole areas were just loaded with these things. And they were all post-World War II.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we talked about the cities that took the best hit. If you're as a real estate investor, you might want to know who's on the other side of that equation. So I'm just going to guess the biggest rent bumps were probably like in the Northeast. But on a percentage basis, you know what? It might be the Central. I don't know. Where was the biggest percentage increase?
Well, we have all of that detail in the report, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
I'll give you the let's see, the cities with 250,000 or more. The top city was Chesapeake, Virginia, 9.5%.
Yeah.
Lincoln,
Wow.
Lincoln, Nebraska, 9.4. Staten Island, New York, 9.4.
Wow. In a year.
Yeah. And Chicago, 6.8, and San Francisco, 6. San Francisco got beat up for a while, and it's on the mend.
It's funny. I did a video on San Francisco twice. It's actually my most watched video. This, I think, was 4 years ago, right during the pandemic. I said San Francisco crisis. It's funny. At the end of that video, I said somebody's going to buy at the bottom and make $1 billion because San Francisco will return. They kicked their mayor out. They got a new one, and it is clearly on the mend. It's not back. I'm not saying it's back. I'm just saying it's noticeably better than before. And rents are skyrocketing. That is the AI tech hub of the Valley. And, you know, it's rents are certainly skyrocketing there. So this is why you got to realize real estate has seasons. You know, San Francisco went through the winter and it's now the spring. And that's how you make money, is you figure out places that will be revitalized. You buy at the bottom, you lease up, and you take advantage of the top. So
I always go back to the early 2000s.
Yeah.
When everybody was buying a home, like in Indianapolis, you could buy a brand new home, or maybe not brand new, but you could buy a home with all up less than it costs to rent one of the brand new apartments out there.
Wow.
And so the apartment guys were getting killed, right? And it was tough. It was tough on the multifamily market in those days. Sure. And they came out of it screaming after the financial, you know, they came out flying after the financial crisis, and they haven't looked back since, but they had to hang on for a little while.
Yeah. Well, we're going to put the link to this amazing report in the description. They can obviously get it at your website, rentometer.com/resources. But let's tease them. What else obviously is in there? Highest, lowest, percentage, amounts. What else can they look forward to finding in this report?
So at the state level, let's see. If you look at state by state and you look at the states with the most cities declining, right? Mm-hmm. So Arizona, 89% of the cities in Arizona had a decline. Florida, 68%. Wow. Texas, 61%. Illinois, 24%. Indiana, 26%. California was 33%. And then, you know, regionally, the Pacific region held its own. The overall Pacific region grew by 3%, but everybody else was below that. In the mid, believe it or not, Southeast, Southwest, and Rocky Mountains was mainly flat, and then Northeast was up about 2.5%. So it's all in there. There's some great charts, some great lists. You can download the lists and everything.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, again, Rentometer is stepping up and doing stuff for the community. One rental at a time, fans. Check the link below. Go get the report. See where your buy box, your city, your state is. And again, if you're looking at just getting started, maybe this report will help you focus in on your buy box. And Mike, I just heard you and TJ are coming to our family reunion in Vegas, February 14th and 15th. So we've got probably 300 or so people coming. So if you're there, make sure you say hi to Mike. Take some selfies. Yes. Any closing thoughts?
The flip side of this, you know, as the economist, and you're talking about inflation. Inflation's been hard on middle class, working class families, and that is the flip side of this. Housing it still takes a big bite, but at least the bite's not getting worse.
No, again, it's hard to understand this, and I feel for everyone. But housing affordability has been getting better every month for the last 27 months. It's just slow in grinding. It will continue to get better. It will probably take another 27 months to really feel it. Yes. But as long as we can keep rents flat and wages, or more specifically, real wages grow, it will incrementally get better for everyone. But unfortunately, just like the 80s, it's going to take longer than we want. But we will eventually get back to a reasonable affordability level. So Mike, you're amazing. We'll see you in Vegas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to see you.